Good evening and welcome to the Lower Frederick Township Board of Supervisors General Meeting. This is December 5th, 2023. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am going to forgo reading the announcements. You can all read them yourself. I have a bit of a cough. I'm trying to save my voice. First item on the agenda is to recognize our outgoing supervisor, Mr. Dan Orff. Do you want me to read it?
Certificate of recognition proudly presented to Daniel F. Orff. Lower Frederick Township would like to thank Daniel F. Orff for his service to our community. Daniel F. Orff, a resident of Lower Frederick Township, was elected to the Board of Supervisors and started his term in January 2020. Daniel F. Orff served our township as a board member for 4 years. On this occasion, the board would like to recognize the efforts of Daniel F. Orff, his commitment to the township shown over his time in office. It is hereby resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Lower Frederick Township that the township expresses its sincere gratitude to Daniel F. Orff for his service to the township. With great appreciation, we thank you. And then this would be resolution 2023 R-27.
So do we need to vote on this?
Yes, this is a resolution.
All right, I will make that motion, and that is resolution 2023 R-27. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. With pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, just a real quick note. I'd like to say thanks. When I first read this agenda item, it said recognize outgoing Supervisor Dan Orff. With my sense of humor, the first thing I said, well, after 4 years, I would hope they'd be able to figure out who I was. And then they did recognize that I have an extroverted personality, that I'm outgoing, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much, you guys.
Can we maybe just, can I give it to him and so the Zoom people can see? Anyone wants to keep the photo? Posterity?
Pam said she
Someone take a picture of it? You got a camera? I do not have my camera.
You don't have Siobhan with us?
No, she's got Nutcracker with the kids this.
please. Yes. We know we've got it.
Oops.
Good looking group. Okay. Thank you.
I'll send them to everyone. Thank you.
What happened to Noel? She slipped on the steps of the bus.
Oh, no.
Back.
I should have been able to change the camera, but I didn't want to try not.
Okay, now on to administrative actions. First item is minutes to adopt. We have the September 26th work session and the October 3rd general meeting. Anyone have any changes to any of those, or are we ready to approve? Okay, someone like to make the motion?
Just do one motion.
Yeah, for both.
I make the motion, we approve the minutes from the September 26, 2023 work session and the October 3rd, 2023 general meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Dan Orff.
So Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Orff made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, treasurer's report.
Okay, so this is through November 30th. EIT, we ended the month at $995,979, which is $161,000 over budget, up 11.5% from last year. Real estate transfer, we ended at $173,788, which is $55,000 over budget, up or down 13.8% from last year. And current delinquent real estate tax, we're at $755,872, $14,000 under budget, but we are up 2.4% from last year. Total general fund revenue, $2.277 million, which is $282,655 over budget, up 2.8% from last year. Total expenses, $2.231 million, which is $82,000 under budget. That is up 21.9% from last year. Overall net income is $45,295. The township budgeted net income is negative $319,172. Overall revenues surpassing budget mostly for EIT, real estate transfer permits, franchise fees, fines from magistrate, and CD/banking interest. And most other line items, revenues either on budget or slightly below budget. Real estate and community development grant are running well below budget. We have received 109.6% of our 2023 budgeted revenue with a month to go. The township expenses is under or close to budget this year for most line items. Overages continue to exist primarily with health insurance, police wages, police O&M, engineer, workman's comp, insurance, zoning, legal, and vehicle equipment repair. Public works, capital, public works wages, and building contractor services are well under budget. So far, we've spent 91.6% of our 2023 budgeted expense with a month to go. Our current total due from the sewer capital is the same at $52,275, which will be transferred. There won't be anything due moving into 2024 from sewer capital. Overall, the township's performance is down 88.6% from last year. Wages with more employees, road paving, and health insurance continue to be the major contributors. The sewer fund, sewer rental use charge is $73,000 over budget. Revenue overall is $256,000 over budget, with $275,000 of that consisting of FEMA insurance payments. The expected sewer connection tap and fees for the Fulmer Road extension has not happened as expected, as we waited late this year for accepting hookups. The fund is at or below most expense items. Utilities, repair, maintenance for the sewer plant, and chemical supplies, along with paving as part of the sewer extension, are over budget through November. The net income is $120,000. The 2022 net income through November was $167,000. Liquid fuels, as I've reported all year, is pretty much the same. We've just been making revenue. Open space fund, net income is $124,000. The fund also received a private donation this year. Total dollars available with the current allocation for property conservation easement grant is $149,230. The ARPA COVID Relief Fund, this fund was not budgeted. We did have the part of the Fulmer Road Riverside Avenue milling paving come out of this fund. The net income is negative $124,494. Total available dollars with current allocation for the Montco 2040 grant is $263.95. That is the treasurer's report. Any questions?
Okay, so now we come to the payment of the bills. We have in the general fund, $101,856.23. In the sewer fund, $281,295.13. And in the sewer capital fund, $366,922.34. Would someone like to make the motion to approve and pay the bills?
Dan Orff will make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Orff made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to our staff reports. Carol, you're up first.
Thank you. Just an update on a number of projects here, the statuses. The Goshen Hoppen Watershed Sewage Planning Study was submitted to DEP, and we await their review and comment. Sewage facilities planning for the Melbourne Hill project was also submitted to DEP for review. Revised final plans for the overall project are also under review by the township. At 1467 Gravel Pike or Leckmore, once project plans are recorded, we anticipate permits would be issued for this project. The Prestige development, also known as Saishaki Tract or Farmview Estates, the developer has submitted final plans, which are under review by my office. They're still awaiting approval of their NPDES permit from the Conservation District and DEP. During the month of November, debris was removed from the site areas previously described as farm dumps. There has been a separate submission made to the township regarding the AT&T easement through this property. The developer has been advised that to extinguish that easement, a new conduit or cable must be installed in the relocated easement to bypass the extinguished portion. So the developer has submitted a grading permit application to perform the work of installing that trench and conduit. We issued a letter that permit approval is conditioned upon notification to the County Conservation District because the property is the subject of a current NPDES permit application. Over at Arcadia Station, the developer continues to work through punch list items towards closing the development. Toward that end, trees were planted at Cuddy Park in an agreed upon swap for trees that were originally to be placed along the Schwank Road frontage of the Ragusa property. Under ongoing public projects, there's the Zieglerville Road drainage. The solicitor's office is drafting easements for presentation to the impacted property owners, and we are concurrently drafting exhibits for same. Flood barriers for the wastewater treatment plant. We have initiated design work for those flood barriers at each door to the headworks and filter buildings. And for the Springmount Road sidewalk, a stormwater design of an infiltration bed has been developed and information provided to the fire company. We look forward to discussing the design with fire company officials. The Meng Road special study work has been initiated this month, including obtaining records from the County Health Department regarding on-lot system permits, issues, and complaints within the study area. At 118 Colonial Drive, lot grading around the new home is not consistent with the approved grading and stormwater management plan. The builder's engineer has been tasked with developing a solution. The 3rd Avenue home construction by Rotelli is nearing completion. At 205 Hendricks Road, plans and calculations for a grading and stormwater management permit have been approved for construction of a single-family home on this lot. We don't have any information on when they'll start work. 46 Kratz Road, the grading and stormwater management plan were approved last year. We don't have any more information at this time. Regarding the Sambrick subdivision on Alexander Drive, the driveway pipe installation is planned on Lot 2. It is to be completed by a contractor, Sachs & Sons, under the township equipment bid. We expect that to happen this month, assuming temperature and weather conditions are suitable. Those are all the items on my report tonight, but also under my report, I wanted to touch base with the board regarding the sidewalk on Springmount Road. So the Lower Frederick Supervisors previously approved engineering expenses of up to $16,000 for the preliminary design, to get the project to the point of submitting a grant application to Montgomery County. So that preliminary survey, wetlands delineation, design plans, cost estimates, and all the supporting documents for the grant application were prepared. And we did that for a total cost of about $10,500 for the township. Now, since grant award, we have performed soils investigation, soils evaluation, and testing for stormwater management. We obtained additional topographic survey of the fire company property to support design of an infiltration BMP. We evaluated potential stormwater management facilities for that project, and we completed the stormwater calculations to develop such a design. Also, during development of these final plans, a utility conflict was identified with the existing sanitary lines. We thank Public Works for assisting in measuring sewer line depths, and we made a design adjustment to resolve the conflict. A stormwater infiltration bed is proposed, and we have reached out to the fire company to discuss the planned BMP with them, best management practice. To date, we have invoiced, including this month, $14,184 for the work on this project. The remaining work, the work that remains includes any meetings with the fire company, drafting work to incorporate the design revisions in stormwater management design, assuming it's acceptable to the fire company, then drafting work to incorporate standard notes and details for the Conservation District submission, completion of the Conservation District submission, submission of the plan to the County Planning Commission because they're the grantor of the funds for this project, incorporating any revisions requested by these county agencies, submission of the general permit application to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for the culvert installation, and then preparation of easement exhibits and descriptions, and finally review the final plan and easements with both the fire company and the D. Simones from who will be acquiring easements. So once all that has been accomplished, we would request authorization from the board to prepare bid documents. But I'm concerned that completion of all those bulleted items may push us over the threshold of 16,000 as originally approved to prepare those initial plans for the grant application. So to keep the project moving forward, I respectfully request the board authorize additional expenses not to exceed a total of $20,000. This represents 8% of the estimated construction costs, and I expect we will stay below that cap in completing the above work. So thank you for your attention to my request, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions?
Yeah, Chuck Geiser. It's not on what you just spoke about, though. You mentioned the flood barriers and that we've initiated the design work. Any idea, like, how long that process is going to take?
Yeah, I've been in communication with a structural engineer about the best way to tie the concrete. We're going to have to put in concrete pads that tie to the building to put in the flood barriers. So I've been in communication with a structural engineer regarding those concrete pads, and I'm just waiting for some feedback from him so that we can move forward. Once I get that, I would be reaching out to LTL to find out what information they might need as the code official, and then that should go pretty quickly. So if I don't have something in January, I'll certainly have something in February for you.
But I guess, is it possible that this could all be installed during the summer, or
Oh,
that-
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I also have a question on
Yes.
another topic.
Sure.
On Arcadia Station on the trees, I know that in addition to street trees, some residents had trees in their yards that have died. Have you also received information about those from the HOA?
Yeah, the replantings are ongoing. There is still some to do, but the landscaper has been working his way through and tree replacements there to meet the quantities of trees that were shown on the original plan. So that is ongoing.
No, but specifically individual homeowners whose trees on their yards have died. Are those also included?
Yes,
Okay, great, thank you.
my pleasure.
Any other questions on items other than the sidewalk project? And then we'll move back to the sidewalk project.
I was going to jump back to the topic that Chuck was mentioning. With respect, would it be possible to ensure that we get the flood barriers into the buildings prior to the spring season where the floods happen most often? Is that a feasible probability?
So we will have to go out to bid. The flood events that we have generally happened late summer, early fall with hurricane season,
Right,
that have tortured us so.
right.
So I was hoping that this would be a spring project that we could get underway, but I don't know all the forces that might be at play in terms of supply chain and availability until we get a little closer to the matter.
Okay, yeah, I know they're usually really thick aluminum plates that slide into slots that are affixed to the door, but you're right, they have to be affixed into a solid cement structure and slid down into that.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yep. I want to do it once and get it right and
good plan.
involve a structural engineer and make sure everything is exactly as it should be.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions on anything other than the sidewalk project? Any questions on the sidewalk project? So what you're looking for is an increase in the previously approved not to exceed $16,000 to a not to exceed $20,000.
That is
So it's
correct.
actually an additional $4,000, even though there's still some of that remaining.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, do we have a motion?
Chuck Geiser, I'll make the motion to increase the not to exceed value from $16,000 to $20,000 for the sidewalk project, and this is estimated to cover the finishing the design, permitting, and preparation of easement exhibits.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Dan Orful, second.
We have Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Orff made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Solicitor report.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Now township staff reports. Police?
Thank you. For the month of November, we had 310 calls. Year to date, we're at 4,108. We issued 31 citations during the month. The police department is continuing to average more calls month to month compared to the previous year. We've completed the transition to the new duty weapons and they're currently in service. The police department is completing their yearly mandatory updates per the guidelines established by the state. We still have several ongoing open investigations that we're not able to discuss right now. We did, in your packet, I did include one news release regarding the criminal mischief that was occurring at the middle school. Speed data reports have been provided for Springmount Road, Village Drive, as well as Game Farm and Smith Road. The police department would like to acknowledge the fire company, Plymouth Ambulance, and the other agencies that assisted with the Little Road incident. And I've been informed that the new F-150 should be coming within about 2 weeks. As we draw closer, I'll keep Jason up to date with it. So there are some delays with, as everything else, with some of the equipment. So it's coming, hopefully 2 weeks, early Christmas present. And that's everything I have. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, fire company? You better talk quick. You've got a call every time.
There we
Should-
go.
there
I
should
got
be
a
a green
green
light,
light
yeah.
now. Good evening. There were 16 calls for the month of November, 7 of which were in the township. Just want to thank Jason for finishing the LSA grant in the nick of time, mostly due to me getting you information at the nick of time for our new engine. If you haven't heard, we did elect a new fire chief at the firehouse back in November. So Tom is no longer the fire chief. Scott Angstadt will be taking over in January. John, who's hiding in the back, who doesn't want to be social today, is our deputy chief who's filling in for the balance of the year. I did see the township share this on their Facebook page, so thank you, but Santa will be visiting the township and borough on Saturday, the 16th. We'll probably be starting at 8 again. We're going to hopefully link stuff to our phones, so when we're coming around, you can sort of stalk us in real time. It worked out really well last year. So we had a lower number of complaints about people missing us, so that worked out well. Yeah, it's like you didn't hear us coming. Looking forward to working with Carol on the sidewalk project. I think you're coming to our meeting in January. Did I hear that correctly? At some point, I heard. Oh, okay. At some point, we'll have to get the firehouse and Carol together probably, because most of the people at the firehouse won't understand your plans, and I don't want to explain them in the wrong way. So it probably makes sense to request whatever that first Monday in January would be. I can get you more information.
You
if
mean
don't wanna-
after the 1st?
Yeah, I think we agreed that if the holiday is on our meeting night, it would be the following Monday. Okay, so the second Monday in January, because I don't know what the calendar looks like. Okay, Jason, we'll get you information on that so you can coordinate and relay to Carol. And just one other thing, Jason, I'll also send you information. I think you guys took our fire truck off of the insurance plan when we sold it in December, I think, of last year. For some reason, it was still on our PennDOT fleet plan for registrations and stuff, because the tag never, something with PennDOT, the tag never information to get back to PennDOT. So I'll send you that information as well, so you can just confirm that it's still not on the township's insurance plan, because I'm just assuming it's a PennDOT issue, not an issue on both ends, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the sure, and I think I'll probably have that in the beginning of the year again when we get our list of assets.
Okay,
to
the updated
confirm.
insurance cards and stuff. Okay, perfect. That was all I had. John doesn't have anything. Any questions for us? Record lengthy report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, ambulance?
Okay, so this is their October report. So in the month of October, they had 17 calls for service. At the end of October, they had a total of 185 calls. Plymouth Ambulance is kicking off their 14th annual Operation Christmas Kids Toy Run. Any public safety agency or business that would be interested in being a collection point, please email. This year's event will take place on Sunday, December 16th. And I do know that the township, we did put that out on Facebook for them. That's a report.
Thank you. Public Works?
Okay, so for the month of November, they did 4 sump pump sewer inspections for UNOs, winterized and prep trucks for winter, crack sealed township building parking lot, patched holes on various roads, measured inverts for manholes 424 and 425 for the Springmount Road Sidewalk Project, attended meeting for new lift station and post sewer installation work for Doley and Saxon Sons, refurbished the desk for Bonnie, and they performed work in the police department area.
Okay, I'm filling in. Guess Marla wants to get her money worth out my vice chairmanship before the end of the year. So we can go on to boards and commissions. Do we have somebody from the EAC here? Thank you, Mr. Bonner.
Good evening. We met briefly in November. We discussed the locations of the Bird Town signs that were presented to us a couple of months ago. And we would like to purchase 2 more so that we can have the signs posted at all the major, most heavily traveled routes into the township. We'll then work with Jason about trying to get them installed. We received some information from Upper Frederick Township regarding their electric vehicle charging station. Some of the grants that they were able to utilize are no longer available. We think it's a worthwhile project, and we're looking into some additional funding opportunities to do that. We discussed presentations for next year and what may have be of interest to residents of the township. We are planning to change our meeting date next year to the second Monday of the month. And we'll get those days to Jason so he can advertise them. And then lastly, our Did You Know for the month is a link to a Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection webpage with some ideas of how to celebrate the holidays in a more sustainable way. That's all I have.
Just a quick question for Jason. We don't need anything with respect to the additional signs or anything, no? Okay.
It's not cost prohibitive for the signs. I think,
Okay.
if I recall correctly, were they like,
I think there were $60.
I thought I had 68 somewhere in
Yeah.
there. So
Okay.
I don't find that cost prohibitive for us to do.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. Planning Commission?
Got me. The Planning Commission met on November the 16th. Back in October, we had tasked our county planner to look at our comprehensive plan and make some recommendations as to how we can set our agendas up and our goals for the coming year in the future months. And we spent the bulk of our time on the 16th discussing how we can prioritize and what kind of things we can get involved in to better serve the community. So we had the county planner take our comprehensive plan, break it down into each one of its primary facets, that being planning for trails and sidewalks, planning for open space and parks, ordinance reviews and revisions for transportation and mobility throughout the township, an ordinance review for our revisions potentially in our village areas or village development, and then finally a category which involves economic development throughout the township. We spent a lot of time grappling with how to set our priorities and what things would be of most importance to get in place as a priority and first run at this. And we decided that the third topic, which I mentioned, which is the ordinance review and revisions for transportation and mobility throughout the township, was something we hear repeatedly as important to our residents, and we wanted to prioritize that as our first overall goal or agenda agenda items for the coming year. And that would include things like reviewing the use of cul-de-sacs and developments, things like the streetscapes around the townships and traffic calming and things of that nature, as well as road planning and the use of roads and how people are traveling to and from, and what kinds of things we can do to try to promote a better community. So that was the bulk of the meeting. There were some clerical things which we attended to and some announcements, but that was the primary focus of our meeting on the 16th. Are there any questions? Pretty good. You guys are good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will give a report about the last Regional Planning Commission meeting. We met on November 20th, and our main topic of discussion this year is the update of our comprehensive plan. So at our November meeting, we discussed generically the community survey, which was closed. We had over 330 responses. Almost half of them came from Lower Frederick, so thank you, Lower Frederick, for your responses. We went over the community facilities chapter, and the next meeting's discussion, which will be in January, we'll discuss the transportation chapter. So those of you who followed the comprehensive plan in Lower Frederick, it's a similar process. We're just looking at the entire region. Open Space Committee.
Good evening. This is Andrew Lang reporting to the Open Space Committee. We met on November 15th, 2023. We were short a couple members that evening, so I don't have a ton to report here. We discussed updates on a grant application that the committee has partnered with the Heritage Conservancy on, an application through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for matching funds for land acquisition. That application was submitted at the end of last month, so we will await to hear updates on that early next year. We also reviewed a proposal that was voted upon by the Board of Supervisors at their October 24th work session to allocate a portion of open space funds to a project with the Montgomery County Farm Preservation Board. We reviewed the components of that decision. And there were also slated for discussion a proposal for trail easement work in Lower Frederick in partnership with Schwenksville Borough and updates on Zero North Gravel Pike, but we determined that it would be best to have full membership or close to full membership to discuss those points. So we postponed them for our next meeting, which will be held on December 13th.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Park and Recreation Board. Pam?
We had our last meeting of the year last night. And as Carol mentioned, we had our final tree donations put in at Cuddy Park. So we were able to add 14 native trees to the canopy in 2 of our parks this year, all very nice specimens. And that diversity adds to the resilience of our parks and also to the native improved habitat. So good year on that. We are planning for all of our 2024 events. That planning is nearly complete. We have one project which we are in the midst of setting up, which will be our new project for 2024, and that is the traffic garden, which I'll go ahead and do now since you have it up. I had mentioned, I think, in a meeting about 2 months ago that we were going to do a collaborative project with the police department on bike safety and child safety, street safety in traffic. We formed a working group, which is Officer Carissa Lauer, Katie Lewis, and myself. Our first project was to ferret out where the best resources were, and we had all seen the published articles on the New Hanover installation that was done last year. Katie took it upon herself to research that and get us contacts and arrange a call. We had a very good call with Montgomery County, the Montgomery County Health and Human Services, and also Montgomery Office of Public Health has a whole team that does these installations. Our timing was perfect. We got in, they have funding every year to do one traffic garden, and we got our foot in the door, so we are it for 2024 if we choose to do this project. So the picture on the left is a picture of the new garden that was done last year in New Hanover Township project. That is a 75 by 45 foot new pad that they poured and put in. So it gives you an idea of the kind of thing we're looking at. It has a traffic circle, which I think for us is very useful. So if you go to the next slide, Jason. So I just, so everyone understands what this is. It's a public safe space. It'll be in our park. We're looking at Foy Park. And it's designed to teach road safety to young cyclists. And it will be a permanent installation. We're looking at putting it in Foy Park, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But it allows you the children to practice skills, to get review of the rules and regulations. It's a great interaction with parents and children on safety. We're also going to take the opportunity, since Foy Park is right on the Schuylkill Trail, to do also trail courtesy safety training, because I walk the trail. I'm sure a lot of you have as well, and I get frustrated people coming up behind me without announcing. So we're going to integrate that into part of the training as well. But it will be down, at a park, open and available for people to use at their discretion when the parks are open dusk to dawn. So next slide. The location we have selected is Foy Park, primarily because it is a passive use park and we have a nice big macadam pad there. Now it does have some cracks, and other people who had Carol or Terry could probably tell me what Tommy and I have been talking about, what we might want to do to maybe seal that up a little bit better. But it would be a flood resistant installation. New Hanover put up fencing because they're right off of a parking lot and they have to worry about cars, but we are well off the road, well away from traffic, so we don't feel like we have to fence it, which with flooding is an issue. It is in, as I said, close proximity to the Perkiomen Trail, so we can take advantage of that. The kids can practice things, and it provides, additional family activity. Parents can go there with their kids. The kids can practice. There's a cute, it's cute little roadways for them to just practice on, and things like that. So it's a great resource, I think, for the township. Go ahead. You can go to the next one. The project cost, and this is estimated, but it's actually pretty solid. Monco Health and Human Services is funded with a block grant once a year for one of these, as I said, and they are funded this year for approximately $12,000. In this process, Monco provides material specifications, which is primarily Sealmaster. It's a rubberized coating for non-skid, kind of a safety coating. If kids fall, they don't scuff their knees and stuff, and then you paint the design over that. They provide the stencils and stenciling outlines. They provide lesson plans. They do event training, and they will also actually hold the event and provide trainers for an event that we would hold to kind of kick off the use of this project. What they ask for, which would be our side of it, is volunteers to help paint the thing. Also, obviously, Public Works would be applying the safety coating on top and assisting with the installation of this thing. Installation of signage, which Monco provides. They have some, I'll show you some pictures of some of the signage they've got, but there's biking regulations and biking safety signs in English and Spanish that they have available for our use that we can take. They also provide a generic sign of bike safety rules that we could use and personalize for Lower Frederick Township, but they would give us the master for that and use that. So it's really a nice opportunity for us to personalize a program, but with a lot of support from them. They would also help, and we would be developing, hosting, and advertising out an event in 2024 when this thing is built. And we would cover any cost overruns, and I've estimated they're not to exceed $3,000. That's my best, fairly solid estimate. I did go back to Montgomery County. I got the costing that was done for the last two that they put in. New Hanover, as I said, their site was a 75 by 45 foot project. It was $9,080 to put that in for them, and they had to pour a macadam pad. Hatboro did humongous 132 foot by 120 foot one the year before. It cost them $15,000. And then our Foy pad, we have available space on that pad of 52 feet by 85 feet. So we could choose to do a site about the same size as New Hanover, or we could expand it out depending on what we want to do. They will provide the stencils. We will be looking at, our working team will be looking at what pieces do we want put in the project itself, in the garden for the kids to practice on. I think the traffic circle is a great idea. They have parking stops, crossroads, all those kinds of things. So we would help in the design and layout of that system. So based on that amount and the fact that they have a block grant available of nearly $12,000, we should very well easily be able to pull this off with no more of an outlay, other than our Public Works support, obviously. the labor, and with some volunteer help to help paint it, which I think we can get a community effort going to help paint. Once they set the stencils and they do the outlines, they just need people to fill in the colors. And we'll get to pick the colors and everything else. So, and then, obviously we have to agree to maintain this thing. It is a permanent installation. So, maintenance would just be, if we did have flooding, we'd have to hose it off. Other than that, it's pretty low maintenance. It's pretty resistant materials. We would maintain the site along with the rest of the park. So we feel like it's a really nice project. We're excited about it. I think, the outlay of the township is nominal. And the resource that provides us additional, public communication and especially child safety on our roads, where we don't have real good biking trails, and also with the trail nearby to be able to do this kind of educational outreach would be great. So next slide. This is an example of some of the signs, and I realize we can't read it there, but they're very nicely pre-printed signs in English and Spanish. And it provides things like hand signals, basic bike safety, and use of what signs mean, what the lines on the road mean, and things like that. So they get a little bit of traffic safety as well, just for driving safety on our roads. So that information would be posted up at the site and available not only when we're doing an event there, but also if a parent takes a child or a child wants to practice, it's there for their review. To help with training ongoing. So they're really nice signing systems. So next one. So we're doing our preliminary events planning. We had that meeting. Carissa, Katie, and I have kind of been doing a little bit of brainstorming on how we might want to approach this event. Obviously, we don't have a date selected because the installation would have to occur and we'd have to have the site ready to go. We would anticipate that we could probably, hopefully, with the help of the Public Works crew and Jason's support, probably have this done maybe late summer, early fall. We might be able to do something concurrent with our Fall Fest or something like that. But our objective is to have, maybe some kind of a ribbon cutting ceremony, kind of introduce it out and advertise it out that this resource is available to surrounding communities. And also have like maybe a bike rodeo, in partnership with the police department, or, and also we're talked about inviting local bike shops to provide instruction on bike maintenance, maybe provide safety equipment, recommended safety equipment examples of that. We typically at the parks have not allowed sales, but this might be an opportunity. We might want to allow them to sell, helmets and safety vests and that kind of thing at this event. I think that might be a good idea. So we can talk about that we get closer to the date, but and invite school bus safety advocates, possibility of maybe doing a helmet distribution for kids. That starts to get expensive, but we might be able to get some people to donate some helmets and things for us. So we're kind of at the early stages of brainstorming what the event might look like, but we definitely want to do a public kickoff kind of program. Maybe have some food because we always like to party in the park board. But a big event that's really supportive of the community, and when people bring their children in, they'll get counseling and safety equipment, safety rules. They have a lot of great handouts and support information that they have available for us that we could be handing out as well. So our next action item is we have a meeting scheduled with Montgomery County and also with Tom Manning and Jason Wager to meet at Foy Park, to look at the site, to look at that pad and start talking about what it's going to take to get it up and ready, and what size of pad, what size of installation we might want to do and that kind of thing. So that's on December 20th at 10:30. Anyone who wants to, join that, you're welcomed. But this is going to be kind of another, first look-see at it. We've looked at aerial photographs so they know what the park looks like, but really start to dig into how we're going to make this happen. So that's basically it for that program, but we're excited about it. We think it's a really great community outreach kind of thing, and especially public safety event as well. So I did want to make sure everyone understood what we're doing here and what it looks like.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your team. Katie and Carissa, if you can pass regards back to her for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work. Are you looking for anything from us today or just?
Not right now. I just wanted to
Okay.
bring, not everyone knows what a traffic garden is. I want to kind of bring it up to speed and kind of what we're thinking, where we're going with it. We think that we've got a good opportunity right down at Floyd Park sitting there that we can use. And, we happened into the timing correctly to get the funding for it. So it's working out nicely. So we're all excited about it. And I don't know if Sergeant Cass, when I tapped him about it, are you interested in doing something like this? I got an enthusiastic heck yes. So, I mean, it's really a great opportunity.
Yes, I just had one question. So in addition to the educational events, is the idea that kids will show up and just use it to practice, or it'll be open at all times?
It'll be open the whole time. Anytime the park is open, it'll be available for public use. So the parents can bring their kids on their bikes and they can practice. They can read the signs. They can be on the course, practicing and playing on it. It's kind of like a big play yard, so it's kind of cool that way. But also there's a safety element to it as well. So.
Okay, great.
So yeah, it's a permanent installation the way it's going to be. So it'll be there for if we want to do an annual event, we could do an annual event. If a school or someone else wanted to use it for a training event or anything like that, it's available for use.
So Pam, is it targeted at a specific age group, or what kind of usage level do
It
these
starts
types
with
of places?
it starts with skates to scooters to
Yeah.
trikes on up.
Okay.
And I know from walking the trail, there's some adults that could benefit from this training as well. So there's the instruction is there. The parents will learn along. I don't know. Last time I learned hand signals for the biking, it's been a little while. I could use a review myself. But we've got park board members that have small children, and they're ready to enlist. Get them in here.
Great.
So that is that project. That's going to be our new one for the coming year. The park board didn't complete our annual inspections of the parks that we do every year. So those were submitted this week. So they'll be compiled into listings of immediate safety issues and then lesser urgency maintenance issues. And then also if there's anything that's a long-term planning for us as far as park improvements, those will go on the list. And these combined elements help to give guidance to Jason and the Public Works group of any maintenance and stuff we need at the parks, and kind of give some work orders there to get things done for that as well. So we do that every year, especially the safety things. We want to make sure we have an obligation to be looking at the tot lots for safety. So this is the annual inspection for that. We've been working heavily on dog park rules, and we had a request on email to the park board from some users of the dog park for some additional signage on courtesy rules, just how to handle your dog and things. Katie and Becky were the two team members working on that, and came up with some really nice two signs. One on Cuddy Park dog park rules was just basic courtesy of, pick up after your dog, keep them on a leash until you enter the park. You're inside the caged area. Keep your dog under control. You're responsible for your dog. Dogs showing bad behavior, lack of control, or aggressive behavior toward people or other animals must leave the dog park immediately, and that we are not responsible for injury or damage, and you're at your own risk in the park. And it's just another, it's not really rules and regulations, but it's a nice little reminder. The other one, which I really like, is a nice dog behavior, dog greetings of basically green, yellow, and red behavior for your dog. And it'll be posted up, just kind of tell as a warning, just to kind of remind people, if your dog is exhibiting these kinds of behaviors, you probably should keep them away from other dogs. Maybe you need some instruction, but what do you do about it? And just kind of keep people on the alert of courtesy that, maybe your dog is very friendly, but the other person's dog maybe doesn't like other dogs or doesn't like to be in there. And we've had some issues with that. The people just come into the pen with their dog and don't ask, and they just let their dog loose. And we haven't had any serious altercations, but it's there for an issue. So we're looking, I don't think we need to have any kind of approval for this. The board has looked at this and we've approved these. We're going to go looking for getting them printed up just at the dog park there, just as the courtesy signage. The other thing I did want to bring up, I'm sure everyone who's dog owners here has been seeing that there is a respiratory illness going around in dogs. I have consulted with Dr. DeMaio, who is our vet at Main Street Veterinary in our township here. We're not seeing it in our area yet. It is in Pennsylvania. We just read this evening that apparently they're starting to identify what it is, and we may be able to have a treatment soon. But right now they don't have a treatment for it. It's it's resistant to antibiotics, and some dogs, especially older dogs, may get long-term permanent impacts and side effects from it. So the recommendation is, don't panic. It's nothing really horrible. But the reasonable thing to do and the recommendation is keep unfamiliar dogs separate. If you've got a play group that you work with, that's fine. But also monitor your dog. If your dog has respiratory symptoms, cough, runny nose, respiratory illness appearance, keep your dog away from other dogs. And don't let them be near other dogs that they're not typically with or in their family. So as a group, we talked about that last night, that we might want to just post up something. It's really not, it's just a guidance thing that we would post up at the dog park. It just says, just as a reminder, we have this happening. Just, keep your dog separate from other dogs unless they've been together routinely. So if there's no issue with that, that's the kind of thing we're looking at doing. I don't know if you need to rule on that or not, but that's what we're thinking of.
No, unless anyone objects, I think. Yeah, the other thing that I don't know if they keep like a water dish there, but that probably shouldn't be removed.
Right. Yeah. Most people bring their own water, but that's a good point. There
Maybe add
there
that
are
to
usually
they
water
should-
dishes there.
Dogs
and
should not
They
share.
should not be shared. Yeah. So we'll make up a quick notice. We'll run it by Jason to put on the entry to the dog parks, just to make sure that we're doing that. But just as a reminder to people until we get this under control. And the last thing is, we also, as a group, decided to do some little libraries in some of the parks. And we have money in our budget on park improvements to do that on this year's budget yet. So we're going to order 2 of those, one for Coble, where we have the tot lot and little kids, and another one at the dog park, just to kind of see if we have interest in that kind of thing, if it's something that we want to expand to other parks or other areas. But it seems to be a common thing that's pretty popular. And along with that, there's some interest in starting some book clubs and stuff like that. So we might be able to instigate some additional community interaction on that. So that's basically what I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving to our business portion. The first item is a land development waiver request from Sylvia's Gymnastics. Who's going to start this discussion? I think he's pointing at you, Carol. Oh, the applicant, okay.
Where'd she go? She lost you.
My name is Alan Hallman. I'm the architect for the project. And this is Sylvia Hutchinson. She's the owner. I think the easiest way to do this is just maybe run through briefly some of the things that we should have presented initially, but we did not. Some of the things that basically were missing from the drawing. We were in need of 2 reports, one for the septic system and one for the well. to ensure that they were sufficient for the addition project, and I think you have copies of both of those. We didn't cover the areas, the building areas well enough initially. That's all now on the drawing. Existing building areas, all total building areas for the site, and of course the area of the addition. We addressed the parking and got that up to where we need it for the use of the building. We've also designated an overflow parking area, which is an existing asphalt area adjacent to a pole building on the site, on the north part of the site. We did not provide a grading plan. We'll provide that when we submit the construction drawings for the addition, and the grading around the addition site will all be designed and shown on those drawings. We do have ADA parking provided. There's a space now that's designated as ADA right adjacent to the building, but it's not really doesn't really comply with the rules for ADA, and we'll repaint that, and then we'll end up with 2 spaces there that are ADA designated. And that's actually a really good spot for those spaces because it hooks up with a hard walkway that goes right to the front door. And we surveyed that walkway. It's almost level. It's under the maximum walking slope surface required or allowed by the accessible building standards. And we also added some information about impervious coverage, which is related to the stormwater management waiver request. And we got that down, the additional impervious down to 68 square feet, which is pretty minor. And that's pretty much it for updating that drawing. Of course, we added signature blocks, which all of that was missing. We really basically altered the original sketch plan to more fully comply with what we were trying to do. There are no signatures on it, but there are the blocks. We're ready for, we just haven't done that yet. That's pretty much what I have.
So is it my understanding that everything in Carol's letter you'll comply with?
Yes.
Okay. Any other question?
So your addition's only 2,336 square feet?
That's correct. It's a 32-foot wide portion of the building that's going to match the existing building. It'll in almost all respects.
Right, it's on the lower back side.
Yeah, on what would be the east side. Yes, right.
Carol, do you have any other concerns? Or are you satisfied?
Yeah, so I haven't seen the revised plan since my letter. I have seen a revised or an updated report on the septic system. Thank you for that, and that satisfied concerns. So if the applicant is willing to comply with all the other items in my review, I offer no objection to the request for waiver of both land development and stormwater management contingent upon complying with the items in my letter. Thank you.
I do have a comment. I'm not sure if I don't think it's in Carol's letter, but if the waiver is granted, my only condition would be that, and it sounds like they're doing this, the plan can be recorded. So even though it's not an approved land development plan, it probably, in this, this situation, it should be recorded. So we do have a record of what was approved going down, going out in the future. So that would be my only comment in addition to what Carol has said in her letter. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a question for you. Maybe it's for Carol. Number 2 recommendation from the Planning Commission from the 10/19 minutes pertaining to on-site stormwater control facilities. That's what's already been covered, and you're accepting those?
Yes, so the applicant had his engineer
Yeah.
evaluate the stormwater, made a recommendation for a modification to the outfall orifice, and they're indicating they will comply with completing that modification.
Okay.
So I guess the motion would be to grant the request for a waiver of land development concerning the proposal to construct a 2,336 square foot addition, the expansion of the current use located at 313 Big Road, in accordance to plans entitled Proposed Addition to Sylvia's Gymnastics, dated 11/15/2023, with the condition that the recorded plan be placed on file with Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds, and all of the items in Carol's review letter dated October 19th be complied with. Is that? Sorry, October 7th.
1-7.
October 17th. Does that cover everything? All right, would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying
Can
aye.
I ask one question? Yeah. So the grading plan is included in there?
The requirement that they submit a grading plan with a grading permit application is included, yes, sir.
It's in your letter?
It's in my letter.
Okay, because it was at a separate bullet that I just got confused. All right.
I made a note of that on the drawing as well, just to cover that issue.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank
So
you.
just for the board and the applicant to know, I will send out a letter confirming this grant of the waiver to you within probably the next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll probably send it to you, Sylvia, directly and copy you on it.
All right, thank
Okay.
you. Very good. Thank you.
All right, next. All right, the next item is the reserved unused EDU policy draft discussion.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is the clean copy, I believe. I did put both. I made the changes that I had proposed in last week's meeting. So what you're looking at is the most updated version. trying to remedy any possible conflicts or anything that might make it more confusing. So what I figure we're at the point is, and we really haven't deep dived at looking at rates for both the dormant EDU charge and reservation fee, considering if an owner of an EDU can use it for another property they own, because I have been asked about that. Whether to put a time limit, which is in section 9.c, on how long to connect to the system, and then certainly any other questions that you may have waiting for this conversation.
Are you looking for us to make decisions on those items tonight?
If possible.
Do you have any recommendations? Or does Peter? And I think we're talking about section 9, paragraph B, paragraph C, and paragraph E, which have things that need to be filled in.
I mean, my recommendation, obviously, you're going to need to set a rate. I think you should for both the dormant and the reservation fee. I have seen where EDUs are transferable amongst properties. I think it leads to some issues. So I would recommend probably in this case not to do that. And then, yeah, we should definitely have time limits listed to connect to the system. So you don't want to just be hanging out there forever and ever and ever on some of these things.
Do you have any recommendations about any of these items?
The ones
About
that
what the time amount should be, what the dollar amount should be?
dollar amounts, I do not. The only thing I can say is under the, and we have to adjust the language in here, but under the municipalities planning code, the reservation fee cannot be more than 60% of the same bill charged to a regular customer. So if we have a reservation fee for an annual reservation, it can't be more than 60% of what one of our regular customer pays for a year. That's a limit in the MPs, in the municipalities planning, municipalities authorities act. Other than that, I think the fee, there needs to be obviously some connection between the fee and our costs for administrating it, and any other costs that we want to attach to it. But that's not something I don't have any experience in setting that, so I can't comment on what that should be. I told you my recommendation about a transferability. And then as far as the last one, give me 2 seconds, please. Okay. Sorry, my computer is a little slow. Section 9C. Once again, I've seen it all over the place. It's really my recommendation. I have no legal basis for this, or maybe 3 years, 2 years. But I don't really have anything beyond kind of just pulling something out of thin air. I don't really have a true recommendation or tell you what other places do, because I don't know that off the top of my head. Oh, come on, please. Technology's great until it's not.
I think we talked about something in the vicinity of 3 years, because probably not more than 3 years. I mean, is 2 years too little? Is 3 years enough?
It's not gonna- Yeah, I don't, once again, like before, I really don't have a recommendation based on any experience or legal requirements for E. But, my thought on the reservation fee is you don't want it too long, because you don't want a situation where people are kind of hoarding them. And then you have people who are ready to build and they can't because we don't have capacity to hook them in. But you want to make it long enough that someone, when they start planning and start outlaying money on a project, they can reserve an EDU to guarantee that once they're ready to hook up, it's there. That's why, my thought is 3 years is probably about a good number. You don't want to get much past that, because I don't see people planning it, planning that far in advance or starting to commit things that far in advance. But at the same time, you don't want to, I don't think a year is long enough.
I thought during one of these discussions, we had considered having the was it the reservation? The reservation, what was it, the reservation, is that what B is, section 9B? No. Where do we have to consider some kind of a reservation fee? Okay. Oh, there it is. So is this something we're going to set on our fee schedule? Okay, so we don't have to put it in the ordinance. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the resolution part.
So wouldn't it just be, it is 25%? And not, in no case shall it be greater than, like, don't we have to set a fee here? So the fee's not below 25, it's 25.
This is 3D. This is what I was just referring to. This needs to be changed. So under the Authorities Act, it can't be more than 60% of the fee charged to a regular customer for the same period of time.
So is there another section in here that the fee's actually defined? This is a statement saying it can't be more than 60, but where
No,
do we
we
say
have
what
to,
it is?
we have to add that language in here. We have to take out this language regarding the 25% and add the language regarding the 60.
To not be greater than 60.
Yeah.
So where in here do we say what it is?
Say what the fee is?
So it can't be more than 60, but what is the fee when someone's
The
reading
fee
this?
would be set in our fee resolution.
In the fee
It's
schedule.
not in this.
Okay.
We can mention that in the fee is set by the board annually.
Well, it's mentioned right there in paragraph D. The EDU reservation fee shall be set from time to time by separate resolution of the Township Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So that stays the same. And the second sentence should say, in no case shall this fee be greater than 60% of the average sanitary sewer bill for a residential customer in the same service area for the same billing period.
I'm okay with using 3 years on section 9, paragraph C and E. I mean, we see how slowly things happen. 3 years seems like enough.
Yeah, three years seems like the appropriate middle ground. 2 would probably be too soon, and 4, people might forget it, so I like 3.
So section 9, paragraph B is only in the situation where there's no documentation of having reserved an EDU. How many situations are we going to have of that? One, maybe two?
I would think so. I've been able to locate most of the 31 that we presented a couple of months ago, at least on the township's end. Now, if it's something that I haven't been able to locate through deposits, then obviously I'd have to do it, I have to do some, kind of continued digging, creating the kind of the master spreadsheet, so to speak. But I wouldn't think there's that. I think we talked about this before. I don't think there's that many more scenarios out there that we're not aware of. I think cemetery was like one of the main areas that we that got brought to our attention. That was when the board received that request a couple of years back.
This is a very, very specific situation where the township cancels or reallocates an EDU. And if the landowner can't provide documentation, I mean, I don't know, it's just. Is this in the case of someone who has already paid for an EDU? Section 9, paragraph B?
Well, I mean, this is about us deciding to cancel or reallocate an EDU. But if we don't have documentation, the EDU was paid for.
I guess what I'm saying is, it says, it refers to the current tapping fee. If someone did this 20 years ago, they should not be reimbursed for the current tapping fee. It should refer to what the tapping fee was at the time, shouldn't it?
I think, well, the reason why what B is referring to there is if someone has and this applies to, I think, to non-allocated, what do we call them? Non-used EDUs, as opposed to a reserved EDU. So this is a situation where if someone can show, hey, prove I paid X amount of dollars for this EDU and we're taking it back, then we refund that money to them. If they can't show that and we don't have any record of what was paid for it, that the blank is basically a default amount of money we'll pay them for it. And, just to, give them something that they, we know they paid them. We know that they paid us for it. We just don't know how much. It can't be proven. So we're going to give them something in exchange for it, but not the amount that can't be proven.
I understand. I guess I'm just saying if it happened before the current sewage plant was built, we had a different tapping fee.
Yes, but what you would do, I think there is the board could pick a specific number, or you could pick a percentage. If you don't like the percentage, don't worry about it. Just pick a straight number, like $500, $1,000, or whatever. I think what we were giving you there is, well, there's two ways to do this. You can either pick a flat number, or you can pick a percentage, because obviously over time our tapping fees will change. But it sounds to me, at least you, Marla, would prefer just a straight number, and that certainly could be done.
Well, I mean, in the past it was in the range of $1,500, and now it's in the range of $7,000. That's a big difference.
Correct.
So this is saying if the landowner can't provide documentation, it doesn't say the township can't provide documentation.
No, but if someone comes to us and says, hey, I don't want this anymore, I want to sell it back to you, and we know how much we paid for it, we're not going to hide that from them. I think the situation, based on what I've heard from Mark and what I've heard from Jason, is our information on these that is very sketchy. So more likely than not, we're not going to have this information, and so it's going to be up to the landowner to prove it. But obviously, if we do have the information, we're not going to hide it from them. And even if we did, any intelligent landowner would just file a right to know request, we'd have to provide it. So, yeah, it says the landowner has to provide it, but I think that's the assumption is if we know, we're gonna say this is what it is. We're not gonna hide it from you.
I guess I would, I mean, maybe this is getting too complicated, but I would want to know the date of this, that this transaction took place, and that'll tell us how much we should pay, right? At least it'll give us a
We-
clue.
It would give us an idea.
Yeah.
But I think, at least from my standpoint, and, you know, I would not want to assume that. If we know for sure they paid the full tapping fee, great, we'll refund them the full tapping fee. But if we're assuming that, you know, I mean, if you want to make it that way, the board certainly can. But, you know, my general feeling is that's not something I want to assume.
I guess I don't like what it says of the current tapping connection fee. Maybe it should say of the tapping connection fee at the time of the allocation. Right? So if it was 2010,
Yep,
that would be different than 2020.
correct.
Maybe that would help clarify it.
Okay.
Something like that.
Because I think we would be able to determine when they connected, roughly.
So what?
I think we.
So can I ask you a question? So this is a situation where somebody wants to, the township wants to cancel the township wants to cancel the EDU, right? It says, should the township cancel or reallocate the EDU? It doesn't say the property owner.
Yes.
So we know an EDU, a transaction occurred. We may not know when it occurred. We don't know how much was paid. And the property owner can't document how much was paid. Right? So if we don't know when it was purchased, we really don't know what to refund or even guess at it. But so you just say whatever, 25% of the current tapping fee, which, you know, would be $1,850 roughly. How long? Can't go that far wrong. I mean, it was purchased, what was the tap-in fee prior to when it got raised in 2017?
So from what I recall, I think the original tap-in fees were like $300, I believe, and like when the system went up live. Then it went to $1,500 when the Zieglerville portion was done, and then it went up to $5,000. So I believe it was $5,000 before it went to its current rate of the $7,400. So that's where if we can ballpark roughly when they most likely connect, but that's part of what I'm trying to create based on what I'm finding in the archives, I guess.
How about we just have a not to exceed then? Not to exceed 25% of the current tap-in fee. You guys figure out what the right number is.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're just beating ourselves up over something that may only happen once or twice.
right, I mean, because you have to recognize, so this only applies to the non-use EDUs. And this cancel or reallocation can only occur if parts 1, 2, or 3 in section A. We can't just decide, oh, we're taking this back. There has to be a reason for us to take it back. And so like you said, I think, Jason, you said there's only 12 of these out there, right? That we found.
Rough.
So there's only 12 possible properties that this could apply to at this point in time. So yeah, chances are it might happen once, it might happen twice, but that's probably it.
Yeah, and if they're if we're either taking back the EDU or whatever we're giving them 25% of something that we're going to hopefully utilize, or will hopefully be utilized, and you'll get the regular tap-in fee of 75, whatever it is at the time. So it'll be a net positive under any circumstance. I mean, yeah. And since there's only like 12 of them, I don't think we should overthink it.
So Chuck, you were suggesting a not to exceed?
Yeah.
Can you restate that?
Yeah, I just said that not to exceed 25% of the current debit.
So it doesn't give us an exact amount, but it gives boundaries. Is that acceptable to the board?
That sounds good to me.
And then my only thought on the fees then would be for, and granted, we're a month out from reorg, when we'll be looking at the fee schedule, would be the dormant EDU charge. You know, what percentage of our sewer rental fee determined, because what we are aware of is we've got, in some cases, that where currently residents or landowners are paying the full sewer charge, or in some cases they're not paying any sewer charge. So that would be the only other, I think, as far as fees go, that we'd be looking for the board's kind of direction or the actual dormant.
And I think it was discussed at one point, 25%. That sounds appropriate to me. That would be, yeah, $200 a year, whether you bill them quarterly or annually. I don't know if it matters, although I know there's language in here if they don't pay quarterly. So I guess let's keep it quarterly. Okay, $25 a quarter.
Yeah, I think the thought with
Or
that,
$50 a quarter.
I think the thought with that, it would go out with our quarterly billing, and then that's how their account would be set up.
Yep, I'm okay with that. It's not nothing, but it's not onerous. So that would be not in this document, but we would put that in our fee schedule, but that refers to section 3, paragraph D.
Yes, I just figured we might save ourselves some of the discussion when we're at the reorg, going over the fee schedule.
So by setting it 25%, we don't have to even worry about changing it every year, because if it changes, it will still be 25%.
Correct.
So maybe that would be simpler.
And I think, as the board may or may not recall, we discussed doing the fee, or looking at the fee schedule on an annual basis at reorg. So if for whatever reason you guys wouldn't want to change that, that's, you know, just to get regularized on, so we don't end up with a fee schedule that's outdated again.
Are there any other items in this that any board member would like to address?
Just reiterating, I think, for the fill in the blanks, then 3 years. So it's 3 years across pretty much for everything in this document, which is probably a good thing.
So the section 14, resolution date would be today?
To be, I'd rather get you a final
Yeah,
document,
that's better.
and before you guys vote on anything.
Sorry, so would that be at our next general meeting, or at our next, well, not at our next work session, but at our general meeting in January, or at our work session in January?
I would aim to, hopefully it's a very quick discussion. We have it as part of the January 2nd meeting.
Okay. Is that okay for the board?
You don't want to do it in December?
Well, your second meeting in December is the one right before the PC. It's a half an hour. It's a budget meeting. Do you really want to try to shove this in there too?
Shouldn't be, so we're not doing the Tuesday meeting, we're gonna just do the Thursday.
That's the only reason why I suggested it, is that I know you're gonna be crunched for time.
But do we need this in before we can set a fee in the fee schedule?
No,
Or we can do it anytime.
The fee schedule is gonna be set the same day.
We'll do it all in January.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
That's fine.
That's what you
So we're just going to look at a clean copy. We've already discussed all the pending issues. We'll take another look at it and hopefully it'll be smooth sailing.
So you'll make sure that the incoming board member has this. So we're not.
Is there going to be a planning commission meeting on that date?
I believe that we were planning to have the meeting. I haven't circled back with Greg yet, but we did, there was direction given at the November meeting, so it'd be my expectation.
Because I'm thinking about what Chuck said, considering we have a new board member, rather than put that on her shoulders to get up to speed on this. If we could do this in 5 minutes, I would also prefer to do it at our December meeting.
Not that it matters to me, but I think 5 minutes, if, you know, it seems like we figured everything out, just read through it and vote on it. We should take 5 minutes.
For some reason, there's a hiccup, we'll have to do it.
Then we'll have to.
Yeah. Is that all right,
Okay.
Jason? We'll put that on there.
I'm putting in my calendar right now.
The January meeting or the December meeting?
I will be here for January. Even though I've got 3 other clients, I'll be here for each.
Well, we're going to get to that later in the agenda about what time we're going to have that meeting, so we'll put a pin in that. Okay, next item is escrow release for Loctite.
All right, so as presented to the board, this is escrow release number 4. This was a total financial security that started at $1.298 million. There's been 3 releases, so this is a release request for $236,611.60. It is verified via value engineering memo dated November 20th, 2023. Then the escrow balance would be at $586,951.60.
Thank you. So we need a motion to authorize the release of escrow number 4 in the amount of $236,611.60 for Loctite storage land development.
Yes.
Any questions from the board? Looks like a no. Do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And I'll make the second. All those in favor, sorry, Supervisor Byrd made the motion and Supervisor Hexter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is escrow release for the B Team subdivision.
So this is a little different. This was a project that where we received funds on in March of 2019. As Carol reported last month, they were nearing their 18-month maintenance period, and they had met the criteria for that 18-month period. So I would be looking for release, and there were a lot of little escrows released for this, so it was a little bit wonky if you look at the breakdown. I'm calling this escrow release number 3 or the final. What makes this unique is currently the balance is $9,080.91. We're going to get interest earned for fourth quarter. So that's going to be part of a payment. So that's in the recommended motion. That's why you see in any interest earned. I moved to authorize release of escrow number 3 in the amount of $9,080.91 and any interest earned during the fourth quarter for the final payment release verified by and actually, I apologize, that's not November 20th. That would be September 25th, 2023. So we'll release the bulk of it. Bonnie has had contact with the developer. So if they want to wait till the end of the month when the final interest, but that way they're supposed to be non-interest bearing accounts. And of course they're interest bearing. So it's going to be like $1 or something that's going to hold it up. So.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Would someone like to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Dan Orff will second it.
So I had the motion by Supervisor Byrd and the second by Supervisor Orff. And again, this is the release of an escrow in the amount of $9,080.91 and any interest earned during the fourth quarter for B-Team Investments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Fulmer Road, Riverside Avenue, milling paving change order number 1 and final payment.
I think that one comes to the engineer. And the board hopefully has before them my November 20th correspondence, and I'll quickly review that for the audience. So milling and paving work was successfully completed this season on Fulmer Road and Riverside Avenue. The contractor was diligent in his work, addressing pavement and transition concerns throughout the project for a fine result. Achieving this result required some quantity exceedances that are detailed in the attached job order from Gordian. The actual quantities placed by the contractor exceeded the tons estimated for binder course. The quantities of wearing course placed were less than estimated. The net result is addressed by the attached job order in the amount of $14,885.59. This is a 3% cost overrun on the $493,869.97 contract. Most of the overrun quantities were on Riverside Avenue, and the causes in the overrun relate in part to the difference in base preparation. So on Fulmer Road, the base was milled, graded, and rolled to the desired slope of the future road surface, providing a smooth base on which to lay asphalt material. In contrast, Riverside pavement was milled off and new asphalt placed. That base was not so even, so additional asphalt filled the voids in the base. And there's a picture provided on the memorandum that was provided to the board. Further, there were drainage management concerns that required shaping of the pavement surface or cross sloping, which were achieved with added thickness of asphalt. So you always have that minimum thickness and more. We are in possession of all asphalt material tickets and have verified the quantities as presented. The resulting 3% exceedance is presented for your approval, along with the full and final payment recommendation for this project. So attached in the documents to the board were a job order in the amount of $14,885.59, surety documents, and an application for payment. The last payment recommendation, we were still holding a 5% retainage, so that would be released at this time. That was another $24,693 that was held in progress payment number 2. So that payment should now also be released. And when added to the $14,885 contract adjustment, it results in a final payment recommendation of $39,579.09. So I am available to answer any questions that you may have. I hope that was a very explanatory memorandum.
So we're looking for a motion to pay $14,885.59. Or are we looking to pay $39,579.09?
So we're looking for acceptance of the project work order, which is essentially, I would have called it a change order if I were drafting it. So it's acceptance of that project work order for the 3% overrun, and then recommendation for a final payment, which would be the $39,579.09.
Yeah, I apologize. I had a typo
Okay, I
in the
gotcha.
recommended motion.
Okay, that's understood. Okay. Any questions from the board? So would someone like to make, that is now a two-part motion?
I'll recuse myself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll,
Let's make the motion in the second first, and then you can ask.
sure, I'll make the motion to accept change order number 1 from S.J. Thomas in the amount of $14,885.59. And also to, I guess we're paying S.J. Thomas $39,579.09.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Dan Orff will second.
All right, so we have a motion by Supervisor Yiser and the second by Supervisor Orff. Go ahead and ask your question.
Diane Jurin, Zieglerville Road. I'm just wondering, I know that this was done through a new process of doing a bid, and S.J. Thomas did walk the site and saw the site, and they did agree to the bid. And Doley had agreed to do a certain amount, no matter what they ran into, like rocks, for the whole sewer project. So I'm kind of don't understand why when you bid something for a certain amount and you don't see the problems that you might have, why you can now come back to the township under this KPN bidding process to ask for more money. So that was my question and my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, so do we have any opposed? So the motion passes unanimously, 4 votes to 0, and Supervisor Sachs has recused himself. All right, that brings us to the fun stuff. Observed holidays. If it's okay, I'll just read them. I believe they're the same as they have always been. So this is, sorry, what number is this?
2023 R-28.
Okay, so this will be resolution number 2023 R-28. It's setting the observed holidays for the Lower Frederick Township staff and office. So there are 9: New Year's Day, Good Friday, which is March 29th, Memorial Day, which is May 27th, Independence Day, Labor Day, September 2nd, Thanksgiving, November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving, November 29th, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this? Okay, so we need someone to make a motion to approve resolution number 2023 R-28, which is establishing observed holidays of the township for 2024. Well, I'll go ahead and make that motion then. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexton made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next one, our 2024 reorganization meeting time and date confirmation. Will be on Tuesday, January 2nd. That is set by the second-class township code. What time should we start? I know, Peter, you have other commitments, and we've started, I think, at 5:30 one year. What time do you want? Can you say?
Yeah, I have one client who normally does the reorganization in the morning, so obviously they're not an issue. Yeah, I don't, the other client who I have a conflict with, I don't know when they're doing it, so you should just do it whenever and I will work around it. I mean, if you want to do it at 7, along with your normal meeting, that certainly works for me.
It's fine, either one.
I mean, should we start a little earlier since we have 2 meetings? Maybe start at 6:30? Yeah? Would that work for everybody, to start at 6:30 and then?
6:30.
Okay. All right, so do we need to vote on that or just?
No.
Okay, so we're going to have a reorganization meeting at 6:30 on Tuesday, January 2nd, and when that is done, we will then go into our regular general meeting on the same day. Okay. Acceptance of resignations from the Open Space Committee and Park and Rec Board. So we have a resignation of Larry Cohen from the Open Space Committee, and we also have a resignation of Kelly Cope from Park and Recreation Board. Do I have to recuse myself from accepting the resignation?
Might as well.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the 2 resignations as stated by our chair.
I'll second.
Okay, so Supervisor Yiser made the motion and Supervisor Byrd made the second. I will recuse myself because Larry Cohen is my spouse. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 4 votes to 0 with 1 recusal. All right, that leaves us to our last item. And this is going to also be a brief, high-level overview, review of budget expenditures and revenue.
So, through the budget discussions and based on the decision of the board to authorize advertisement, the general fund was advertised with a deficit of $430,000, $430,452. The capital reserve was budgeted for $69,274 for a net income of negative $361,178. As the board may recall, the capital reserve is an extension of the general fund, so it's acceptable to lump them together. As the board may also recall, this included a 0.37 general mill increase, a 0.11 fire tax increase. We did use 7% inflation for most of the O&M costs, and we also were committed. We had $161,831 committed to 2 trucks that were one for Public Works and one for the police that were already on order. Because as listed in the budget, and this was based on the board's acceptance of a CIP or capital improvement plan, there shows a transfer of $295,434 for capital needs or improvements. Liquid fuels was budgeted for a negative $226,871. That's primarily, we have multiple paving projects within that fund. We did budget for open space which was a negative 10,752. That's due to a commitment of 105,000 for a property easement and the ag preservation property that the board authorized, I guess, donating or giving to the county for that property. And then the ARPA fund had a negative 13,165, and that's with a commitment of $111,531 for the Montco grant. As the board may recall, we're not obligated to budget the open space or ARPA fund, but it's just kind of good practice. So as far as the sewer fund, that was budgeted with a negative $100,478, with a capital reserve transfer of $195,640. The capital fund for the sewer fund was $55,000, so that's a net of negative $45,478. Once again, we're committed to the flood barrier doors. This was FEMA mitigation money that we had received and Carol had discussed earlier as one of the projects. Also, one of the main approvals in there was $30,000 to video/repair of 6,000 feet of sewer line, and hopefully to do that per year as a preventive maintenance.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. We have something new this year that we've been talking about actually for quite a while, which is a capital improvement plan. So we have, like every other township and every household, we have big ticket items that we need to plan for, we need to put money away for, and that is the intent of the capital improvement plan. We will be discussing it in greater detail. We expect in the spring and probably again in the summer, so that'll be an opportunity for the board and the public to get greater clarity into what will be included in that and what our plans are. This hopefully will allow us to avoid surprises to our budget and to be able to do things which we should be doing, which is planning for the future and not just waiting for things to happen.
Just to, I ran through brief exercise with Terry Bird yesterday that helped me out a lot, just to simplify things from just looking at the big picture. So we have and either Jason or Terry, correct me on this, we have a bank account which represents our savings and our checking. Basically, at some point in time, we roll money from the savings over to the checking to pay our monthly bills, right? That process occurs.
Yes.
Okay. In addition to this bank account, that I think some of the wording we use confuses people. We talk about we have a reserve. We really don't have, quote unquote, some fund out there that's called a reserve. We have this bank account. We also have a collection of CDs that represent roughly, is it 900,000?
Yep.
So that represents the money that the township has. And if you compare the beginning of the year to the end of the year, actually, we're not running, we don't know what the exact income versus revenue will be, but it looks like it's going to be somewhere north of even, but south of 100,000, if you're just looking at those numbers.
Yeah, for this year, yes. Once again, I'm projecting 2 months out. I believe it was 80,000, roughly 88 or 88,000.
Yeah, I think what happened, and I'm as bad as what do you call it, as guilty as the next guy. Some of these numbers were confusing me, probably because we kind of changed the way we looked at things. And I thought we were doing very well with the budget, given we had additional expenses. And then to hear the number that you state, which is a real number from the standpoint of for what we're projecting, what things are projected and this, that, and the other thing. But from an actual, looking at, like if I'm at my household, looking at my checkbook, I would see X in it, not X plus what I plan to set aside this year. So it's kind of like the old days where you used to have some of these, what do you call that, capital planning stuff is like the old days where you used to get the savings accounts for getting yourself of planning for a vacation or planning for buying a car or something like that. Just because we're setting these things aside doesn't mean that if we're setting aside for a dump truck and the one we have completely blows up, 3 years before we collected all the money, that doesn't mean we don't go out and buy the dump truck. We just buy it on time, stuff like that, right? So am I getting some of this right? Yeah.
No, you're trying. So what happens then with the acceptance of the capital improvement plan is then on a year-to-year basis, as we've noted, it's a living, breathing document. We're tweaking, we're either pushing stuff back or we realize that we need to pull stuff forward. But that's really the initial kind of shock value was getting it on paper, putting some values to it. And as I told the board, with any of the projects that are in the budget, the board will still be approving any of the, as we shore up any quotes.
Right.
Because obviously if we've budgeted $50,000 for something and we get a quote and it comes back larger, I mean, I wouldn't want to be just saying, oh, well, we budgeted 50. So that will be something that the board will be reviewing along with, we discussed to try to help educate the board better and the residents that we'll be looking at the capital improvement plan kind of in the spring. So just to kind of get some more familiarity with what the board accepted this year.
Okay. So from my perspective, like I said, we'll get more familiar with this and what the number actually means versus what we have, actually the funds we possess versus our expected revenue. There's a real thing of expected revenue based upon the tax base, the number of households, and all this other kind of stuff. Those are real numbers of that are, they're estimates, but they're pretty decent estimates based upon the number of households and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to, things are not that much different than they had been in the past, except we're looking at different numbers, which I think threw some people for a loop. So
correct. I mean, there was a deficit budgeted for this year. Obviously, we are surpassing that. And that's with adding some additional costs. Sometimes things don't happen that we budgeted for, but that's really part of the acceptance of the capital improvement plan, is that kind of puts where some of these larger purchases were in the general fund O&M, and it's putting it in a different bucket, which helps kind of give visibility. It also puts it on the board's radar today as opposed to, next year when, there's a new list of wants and needs coming from the department heads.
All right. And at this point, I'm not going to say anymore. I mean, I'm satisfied with the explanation that Terry provided me and that you've provided today. And so if other people need further clarity, this would be your chance to ask whatever questions you have, because I'm fairly confident that I understand things now, which is not where I was when I left the meeting that we had was it last Tuesday? It seems like it was 3 Tuesdays ago, but no, last Tuesday. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Diane Jurin, Zieglerville Road. Vocabulary is really important. Jason, you just said we're surpassing our deficit. And I don't know if that means we have a bigger deficit than we thought we would have, or we have less of a deficit. What does surpassing our deficit?
So we're beating our budgeted net income. So
we're doing better.
correct.
Okay. So that's one, okay, I did not know what you were talking about. That sounded like we were in hot water. But now when I hear that again, I'll know what you mean. My understanding of what you all did was that it was projected by things that we may want to do next year for our township, might put us in a minus $361,000 place. But you all chose to say, well, let's say we're not going to spend that much money. It's going to be about $100,000 that we might need more of. I hope I have that right. And that's how you then decided what millage you would go with. You are not raising taxes for the minus 361,000 budget that has a lot of things that we may not really need. It's just all the things that could possibly go wrong or could possibly we would need, but you did not raise taxes for that big amount. Is that true?
Yes and no. If you add in all the things we are projecting to need, and some of them we have already committed to, like the vehicles, some of the stormwater and culvert drainage issues, I think that 361 is things that we are committed to doing. And if we do the other things, it would be even larger.
But if our inflation isn't 7%, then that kind of is what allowed you to bring things back down to a lower millage. You aren't looking to, you're not increasing the taxes to reach that 361,000. Is that the yes?
Yeah, that is correct. $100,000 will not get us to 361, but it will get us closer.
Okay.
And we just don't want to keep falling further behind.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for explaining that. I'm used to seeing red when you're behind and black when you're not. So the minus sometimes that's put in front of numbers looks like we're in the hole when really it means that we're ahead, just the way.
No.
Just the way Jason just said it, we're surpassing
So,
our deficit.
so just be, we're still at a negative, we're still at a deficit, but we're at a less deficit than what was budgeted. So it still has a negative.
Okay, we think because we don't know what's going to happen in
And
December.
honestly, if we were in dire straits, I'm doing the treasurer's report on a monthly basis. So we would have known, and the board would have known long before we got to this budget.
Okay, won't bring up that discussion right now about actually being able to see the treasurer's report and the treasurer's checks. But in the last 3 years, DCED has put us in the black every year, correct? We've not been in a true deficit from their way of doing the books for the past 3 years. So I don't think we're in that bad a shape, but we've got a lot of things we're hoping and dreaming. We're getting 2 new vehicles and you've got $165,000 or something like that for repairing the vehicles, which shouldn't happen with new vehicles, or 135,000 somewhere in the budget. But anyway, you've already passed it. My take home is that Jason presented a much larger number that he's projecting for a deficit, and you all went with a lower number, saying this is what the people of Lower Frederick can handle now, and I appreciate that the board did that. So thank you very much. And thanks for trying to explain it better.
Thank you. And I think that's a good suggestion, just to put the negatives in red. Might make it, yeah.
The red's an accounting thing. Some people don't understand the count that, so that's why I put negative.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Linda Jansen, Simmons Road, and also former chairman of the Lower Frederick Auditors. I think the confusion is you continue to say we are operating in a deficit. We are not, and have had positive net income on all of our P&Ls since for the years of 2020, 2021, 2022, and projected for 2023. Anywhere from 100,000 that you're speculating for this year, all the way up to a $400,000 positive net income. Any budget can falsely show or appear to show a deficit when you are overinflating your expenditures and underestimating your revenues. And that is what has happened in our last 4 or 5 budgets. Well, actually, almost every budget. So we are not operating in a deficit. We have always come out with a positive cash balance. If you look at the treasurer's report as of 11/30/2023, you are sitting on what, 1.3 million in savings, 500,000, 300,000 in various funds, close to $1 million in CDs. You're sitting on $3 million cash of taxpayer funds that is accessible for many of these expenditures that you have listed on this budget. I would really like to ask the supervisors to reconsider the 0.37 mil increase to the real estate taxes. You're taxing senior citizens on fixed incomes. Any tax increase should not be taken lightly. I'm not saying for the expenditures and the larger ticket items that you plan for in the future, that a tax increase would not be warranted in future years, but 2024 is not the year to do it. I believe 2024 would be the year to evaluate your priorities, do feasibilities on some of these bigger ticket items like $1 million public works garages and subsequent purchases. I think waiting till the 11th hour in November to say, well, we're just going to raise taxes on everybody. You could also explore some of the larger expenditures that are contained within this budget and perhaps try to find cost-saving measures on the front end so we won't be showing it. Right now, you say we're showing a $430,000 deficit, but that is on paper only. It is not like you're taking money out of here to pay there. You're sitting on $3 million. You have consistently, for the last 4 years, shown a positive net income at the very end of the year. Once you take your actual revenues minus your actual expenditures, and that number shows up on the profit and loss statements. And so, we're not showing a deficit. So I would really hope that you would take that into consideration and use 2024 to explore all funding options rather than raising taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. I'm going to just go into public comment since we're kind of there. Are there any other comments on this topic or any other topic?
Just wanted to quickly say thanks to the members of the board for allowing this to come up as an agenda item. Thanks to both Terry and Jason for helping me have a better understanding of the budget. Thanks, you guys.
Brian, go ahead.
Very good. Good evening, Brian Hill, 11 Zieglerville Road. This question or comment is towards Jason, the manager. In review of the budget, there was a comment made in regards to real estate taxes, and I believe the statement was made that we were $755,000 in the negative on real estate taxes. My question or comment is that, are we working towards obtaining that, or is that bad debt from people who have not paid their real estate taxes? I understand that we are having some problems in certain areas, particularly in the townhouses, of people not paying real estate taxes, and obviously that does go negative to our township. So whether you can comment or answer that question, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other public comment? Any supervisor comment?
It's been a great 4 years working with the 4 members of the board here, and actually I've worked with all the members of the board that'll be here in, let's see, 3 weeks from now. So congratulations, you guys. It's been really nice working with all of you, as well as all of our professional staff, our solicitor and our engineer and the police department, and of course, the work crew and everybody else. I just want to say thanks. Okay.
You have one more meeting. You're going to be there, right?
Yeah, but they'll be half asleep. We're going to pass everything in 5 minutes according to Chuck, and I'm going to hold them to that.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Meeting's adjourned. Travel safely.